maldito me la va a deber. Porque yo soy indio, no debo de saber lo que pasa y a mi tierra no debe de suceder. Milicia del masacre es injusto que no ven.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And we're live.
Again.
Bringing it. Hello and welcome to It's Happening Show, community grassroots media for the people by the people. I'm Jose Gloria.
And I'm Dylan Thompson. We are your hosts tonight.
Tonight. It's happening as the movement of the heart and of the mind. It's the energy in the universe that creates waves inside us and all around us, which allows us to activate, motivate, then elevate vibrationally and intellectually towards love, truth, justice, and wisdom. It's happening in every which way.
It's Happening is a culture of empowerment. It's people having the right to exist and participate as equals. It's a dream of what the world could be. But the future we want is only possible if we make it happen. So stand up, get informed, and fight back.
Fight back. You could be anywhere in the world right now, but you're here with us. So we thank you because of you.
It's happening.
Yes.
Woo.
Man.
I'm tired now.
All right, that was it. That was.
I mean, you're carrying this, right? That's all I got, buddy. No, come on.
Yeah, man. Long week, lots of fireworks, out of control. We'll talk about that in a bit.
That's coming up again. That will be talked about.
For sure. Curfew is in effect here in Santa Ana. Yeah, apparently there was some protests near the police station, and now there's going to be some on Bristol and McFadden, I believe. So, yeah.
Yeah,
careful out there.
There's an anti-police protest planned in response to a killing of Andres. Someone who lived in LA County, right? Killing by the LA County deputy. So, but yeah, I mean, what are these curfews really about? I like when they talk about the curfews. They're like, so everyone will be safe, but like at the same time, it is squashing the aspect of the protest part of this, right? So it's a double-edged thing. Right?
Yeah, I just really hope that protest can relate to change locally with the. But I don't know. The Police Officers Association is taking a vote today to see whether or not they're going to defer their vote to delay their raises until January. So we'll see how generous they're feeling.
Yeah. I mean, that could just be a tactical move on their end to make sure they can get it. I mean, if they do it at a time when it'll be contested a lot, I mean, then maybe we would have a better chance, but if things cool down. So, I mean, we'll see how they go with it. But
indeed.
We'll see. But speaking of, let's go back to fireworks. Okay. I mean, apparently...
Don't you know somebody that has COVID?
Oh yeah, actually, yeah. So, let's just say someone I know's coworker has it.
Okay.
So, so it's hitting home. But it's funny because it just reminded me of this one time I asked someone on the internet, let's just say I have a good friend who has a lot of let's say conspiracy-oriented content, and I was just asking them what would their criteria be to determine if a real pandemic were happening or if it were a hoax, and they said it's that I would know someone that it happened to. So I mean, this suffices for that case. So I hope they believe now. But I just think it's funny because I mean, is that a really good way to judge these things? I know it hits home, right, when you know someone who has it, but that's not a logical justification, right? I mean, you could still find out it's happening even if it didn't happen to anyone you know. That's all. Right.
Yeah, but I mean, even if they get it, it's like, oh, we're gonna get through it. But no, I mean, the cases are still up, and of course, when you have the Trump hosting his rallies with people not wearing masks and not social distancing, that can't that can't help.
Well, good thing no one went. So
yeah, that was fun. TikTok, go Zoomers! Like totally, derailed his momentum there. Yeah, you saw that like that walk of shame that he took from his plane to wherever he was going.
Oh, sad Trump.
Wah, wah, wah.
Wah, wah. He had his like tie undone. He's like, it's been a long day. Long day.
Exactly, man. Yeah,
he's fussy.
It's crazy, brother.
He gets fussy. It was late too, so he gets pretty cranky. I've heard. But yeah, speaking of me being people being cranky, at least. Apparently, I mean, you were talking about fireworks, right? And apparently, it's not just a problem here, or it depends on whose side you're on. But in New York, noise complaints about fireworks increased 4,000%.
4,000?
Yes. So it's actually this article from Business Insider. But yeah, they have some interesting infographics that showed how drastic the uptick is, and how people are posting how it's never been like this. People have their videos of amateur fireworks displays being done outside, and I mean, it's reminiscent of what's happening here. Maybe not to the same extreme, but I mean, is COVID the factor here? Like, are fireworks one of those things you can do, as a community, really? Maybe some of that community doesn't want to be part of it, but
yeah, you know what I'm thinking, and what I was thinking is that folks are, a lot of things happen, right? People were in quarantine, they were frustrated, they were, from being in home all the time. Just wanted to blow off some steam, so just blow shit up.
Blow up.
Blow up some steam. Yeah. So then that's what happened, and also unemployment checks came in handy around the same time. So it's like people got all this extra money to just literally blow up, just burn money in the sky. But it's pretty.
That's the American.
Really loud though. You. Like I got a routine. When I hear like a. And I'm just like,
whoa, yeah,
boom, yeah. Fire, car alarms go off. Yeah, I don't know. I'm.
It's that time of year.
It's that time of year, but because of the COVID and because of the unemployment checks and all sorts of different factors, it just seems like this year, more than any other year that I can remember, is just like been a month-long thing. We're not even at 4th of July yet, and then however longer is going to go past that, but.
Yeah, and it also says that Ohio-based Phantom Fireworks experienced a 200 to 400% increase in sales every day compared to the past year. So, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, man, this stuff is no joke, but we'll get through it, people. We'll get through
jobs. We need jobs. More fireworks. Yeah, keep that economy running.
Speaking of mental health, police kill Canadian men during mental health check. So
yeah, there's a couple little stories in here. BBC story reporting a couple fatalities in Canada, and I mean they're stories about police responding to people having mental crises. And in this one case, Mr. Chaudhry was having some mental issue, and basically he was scared of the police officer's uniform that came, and simply that fear escalated the situation to the point that the officer drew a gun and fired. And another case where a woman was having some problem and on a balcony, and when police came, she decided to jump. So it's like, and this kind of goes to the discussion we'll have later, or the one we've been having as a city about, I mean, how are we going to do policing? I mean, this is a national discussion, right? And I mean, one, maybe our council doesn't give too much seriousness to at the moment. But, I mean, we do have to ask these questions, like, if this were a different situation, if we didn't have to send someone with a gun or someone that maybe is feared, could we avoid these situations, And like someone on the council meeting pointed out correctly, like, I mean, we at least, maybe it wasn't perfect, but we did have mental health infrastructure in the previous decades, like prior to the 80s and stuff like that. And now instead of that, we have police interacting with homeless people on the streets. So it's like, which one was the right path to take. I think clearly we're seeing overdoing it on the police is not the way.
Yeah. Now, and I mean, it sounds similar to the situation in LA with the young man Andres, 18-year-old. I don't know. There's a lot of just interesting things, but apparently he was guarding the place, and then he saw the cops and he ran and got shot, presumably in the back. Cameras were busted in the area, like, interestingly enough. So yeah, people are angry all over the country, and also apparently in Canada and other places where police brutality has shown itself. It's reared its ugly head, in these moments, and it's captured the energy and the passion of the young people out there. So it's really good. Yeah, we really desperately need a whole new generation of folks to join in this battle, because folks have been fighting for 4 years, right?
Oh yeah, harvest is plenty.
Yeah, so all sorts of statues are getting removed, right? So we have Junipero Serra, who was this Catholic priest that people don't really like and from indigenous communities, basically beat Jesus into folks, and all sorts of different folks, right? All over, the place. So who got moved now, Dylan?
Yeah, interestingly, they couldn't stop Junipero Serra from being canonized or whatever it is. But I mean, if they can take down the statue, that's at least a response. But yeah, in this case, it's Teddy Roosevelt's statue at the American Museum of Natural History in New York. They're removing it. And if you've seen this statue, it's basically Teddy Roosevelt on horseback, accompanied by a Black and Native American or Indian person. And it's kind of seen like the positioning, the composition of the piece indicates a racial superiority, as he not only leads but is in higher position, and they're helping him do what he needs to do. And if you know anything about Teddy Roosevelt, I mean, certainly he had his positive traits. He was a strong person, but how can you look past the colonialism? How could you look past his views on race? And I mean, I think considering that this statue is not inside the museum, and actually now they have an exhibit about the statue and about this conversation and the history of it. So isn't that a better conversation to have than just have this statue on display, not as a piece of history, but maybe now it is a piece of history.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I mean, there are all sorts of weird statues I've seen. Abraham Lincoln petting a Black person. When you were talking about Teddy Roosevelt, I mean, I've heard good stuff about him, in some regards, but then, the colonialism. I mean, it's similar, I think, to the argument around Prime Minister from England during World War II, whose name escapes me. Dylan, help.
Winston Churchill.
Yeah, Winston Churchill. Who was similarly had some really disgusting and disturbing comments about Indian people, and just borderline white supremacist type of colonialistic old world type of beliefs, like we're white, we're English, we should dominate the savages. So yeah, statues are being removed, damn it. Oh, and including in Sacramento, right? We had a Christopher Columbus removed from state capitol.
Yep, I'm up for a lot of these things.
Yeah. So for some good news.
Good news.
Yeah. So
yay!
Some really great news. Some
wow.
Tubular. Sound like Bill and Ted right now. What?
Whoa.
Totally. So DACA, big win for a lot of the undocumented community, DACA youths. Folks that fought so hard, during the Obama administration, even. In the moment when people were like, you can't protest him, you can't say nothing because the Republicans are doing, the same things. Like, we need to have everybody be held accountable, including Democrats, even if we like them generally, or are better than the other side. And in this regard, the Obama administration's DACA program was put to the test by the Trump administration, who attempted to remove it and was denied. But apparently it's being denied only just from temporarily, as he explains it, and I've heard it being explained too, it's like they could be we could research, they could bring it back. They just need to fix the paperwork and get it in the right way. So that fight is not over, unfortunately, which is another reason why we definitely do not want him for another 4 years. And then the other issue, right, of course, was the gender and sexual orientation equality in the workplace decision. It was a big win for the LGBTQ plus community, and so that stands, an extension actually of the Civil Rights Act that extended towards them as a marginalized group, a vulnerable group in the workplace. So
yeah,
it's one example of many examples of where African American civil rights and the civil rights movement in general and their fight for humanity and social justice has extended towards all races and all people. And I think it's important to highlight because I'm hearing a lot of like, I don't know, just like, oh, this not Black Lives Matter, all lives matter, and even from like brown people and stuff. So I'm just like, oh, solidarity.
Yeah, that's their version of solidarity. But yeah, man. But yeah, it's surprising to get these wins, and hell yeah, we'll take them.
I know. Like in one case, that Neil Gorsuch like flipped, and the other one, Chief Justice Roberts, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
there's some nuance still on this court, but on some issues. On some issues.
But Trump was not happy, not having a good 2 weeks. That guy.
He's pouty. I don't know if he had his snack. So yeah, but moving on. Yeah, we're gonna go to bad news again. Sorry guys. But well, no, it's good news. It's good and bad news. I mean, a New York police officer was suspended after he was using a chokehold on someone. So that's good. I mean, at least some punishment happening. But I mean, I guess the reason I want to talk about this is like something we were hitting on in the last couple of shows. Is just that the fact that it was already against a bunch of police department policies to not use chokeholds, right? But it didn't stop all these people from being killed, right? So like policy and implementation, like. Because it's almost like, think about how like sometimes there's a law in the books, but it's like decriminalized. So like there's no enforcement. Like you can say, oh, the police have a policy. They have a policy that says no chokeholds, but if no one's actually held accountable, I mean, right? I mean, where are you? You're back at zero.
It's kind of ridiculous where they're like, fine, we won't chokehold you anymore. Like that's progress. Hashtag.
Oh, no.
You know what I mean? Like it's getting to that level right now where folks are just kind of like, all right. It's like you should have been done that. Been done. It should have been already done. And so this is not you like being super like performist in any way. No. And even when they have it in place, like apparently it doesn't stop them from using it, right?
Correct. But I mean, at least if they start punishing people, I don't know if that's going to help, but I mean, it's better than not doing it. It's there's some enforcement here, which is positive. But yeah, let's see those chokehold numbers actually drop, and then we'll say it's a good thing.
Right. Yeah. I'm not hopeful.
Oh Lord!
There's just some serious dismantling and remantling that needs to happen before.
Yeah, I like that, remantling.
Yeah.
That's like a more a softer way. You can say remantle the police department.
Remantle. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm not for it.
No. Okay.
No,
next
needs work. It needs work. Just say. I mean, we're just spitballing here, but. I mean.
Yeah. So another issue was the Santa Ana officials, as we talked about earlier, move forward with police spending increases, police oversight commission, and meeting marred by public outrage. So the vote was split 5-2. Those dissenting being David Penalosa and Min Sarmiento, but nevertheless, they have approved a $9 million police spending increase for the next fiscal year, along with the rest of the city budget and initial vote. Story by Voice of OC's Brandon Pha. So, police department is on track to receive $140 million city spending allocation for the next fiscal year. But and there was a big fight to try to get people to be able to be allowed on public comments. Mayor Pulido and all his Pulido-ness was like, all right, 1 minute for all of you guys, or you 20 people, can't be here all night. It's just like, this is anti-democratic, but not new to anybody that's been to city council meetings in the past 6 years, right? So, but Pulido,
not the worst.
I can imagine him in his bathrobe, like with a bottle, with a glass of wine, like in a cigar, and just being like, no. We can't have all you guys speak. Come on, we have to do personal business, government business. but he did open it up to the folks that were on Zoom, and he got lambasted as well as others.
Roasted.
Somebody called him. I quote, "I am very sorry to the royal Mr. Pulido that I'm coming up and taking 2 minutes of your time away from you," said one caller.
Ouch.
A real oversight board would be ignored and possibly discarded. Meet our demands or be removed from office, said another. Yeah. So
get him.
The commission was placed on the agenda by council members Phil Becerra, Pinelo, and Sarmiento. So we'll see what happens in the next. That staff was tasked to study the item and see how different cities are doing it, and we'll see how it plays out.
Oh yeah. I mean, with regard to this budget approval, I don't know. I just if you listen to the comments, I mean, wasn't it everyone who called in opposed the extra allocation of money to the police department?
Yeah. But Jennifer Rojas went up there from ACLU, and she really, kind of laid it down about what should happen. As far as the commission must exclude current and former city employees and police officers, and must include representatives from community most impacted by police violence, along with outlawing things that should have been outlawed, like we mentioned a lot, chokeholds and other type of like violence first approaches to things. I really like if the protests happen and we don't have some serious reform from the council, then what was it all for? It feels like, and if it's not for something now because of the current makeup of the council, then what does then it compel us folks that live in Santana to do, and how to to exercise the other power that they have, which is the power to vote, and vote for people that are supportive of the community and not in the pockets of special interest, primarily the PLA. So those chips will fall accordingly, and people will be shown for where from whence they stand. But I mean, I'm still hopeful, and I think that this conversation has gone much further than it ever could have gone had not the protest happened, right?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. But I mean, it's still, I don't know, super annoying to just have the council approve it.
Oh, and Dylan Thompson from It's Happening went on and spoke.
Oh yeah.
Perhaps intoxicated.
On deaf ears. Yeah.
It was a long meeting. I was at home, like.
Yeah.
So, you let him know what's up.
Yeah. I'm just annoyed, but I do have some comments regarding the council's comments. First of all, I mean, I have to thank Vince Sarmiento for at least having some thoughtful and sympathetic comments toward the gigantic majority of people calling in. Mm-hmm. So thanks. Also, I mean, David Penaloza, thanks, man. I mean, that's cool. I know that you looked even further into the budget and had other problems with it. And that's great. And I noticed that he had pointed out that people were wrong to say that 12 or 12.5 million was being allocated to the police, because it was 9. That was correct. That's a good observation to point out. But I just want to say that my only criticism of that was that he called some of the callers disingenuous. While some of them could have, I believe the vast majority of people were just mistaken, but correct about the general trend of how spending was, right? So, I mean, just to call people disingenuous, it's like, it's a high burden to show that. But I mean, look, I'll thank the guy for voting the way he did. And last, sorry, I did, yes. Okay. But Phil Becerra, yeah, I know you brought up my comment earlier. You can tell I'm passionate. But yeah, regarding Phil Becerra's comments on Tuesday, I mean, I thought it was a bit condescending because he was amused by the different solutions people had.
Oh, yeah. Saw that clip.
So I wasn't sure where he was going in that, because at the last council meeting on Thursday, wasn't he saying we need to rethink how we do public safety? So I'm pretty sure that's pretty much what everyone was saying. So I'm at least glad that he I mean, I hope he knows that that's what people meant, and that hopefully if he's actually for that, he can be worked with. But that's all for me.
Yeah, no, it's it was a long meeting, and the Zoom is like a major fail, and whoever's running perhaps should be fired.
Ouch. No, the Thursday one didn't work.
It's really bad. They can't have messed it up that bad. But I mean, I get it. They're overwhelmed, but still, like it's borderline, like kind of like sabotaging, self-sabotaging of public speech.
It doesn't help the public discourse to get everyone pissed off. But
so yes, in this moment, we're talking about these things, and I'm gonna go ahead and segue into our awesome guest for tonight. This moment is where people are starting to figure out what their budget looks like in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis, right? The city of Santa Ana has to do that and come to real terms about how they want to use their budget, and and which ways they can afford and not afford to to engage in practices before that pandemic. I really hope that the conversation takes the turn that it needs to, at the very least a deferment, and at best a conversation again about what community policing could look like, and the ways that we can expand our abilities to use better force, different programs and partners in the outreach of the homeless and other type of disputes between marital disputes and different things that perhaps don't garner mental health situations that don't need to have a person with a gun that is trained to shoot first and ask questions later. So I'm hopeful with that. And Anaheim is having that same conversation, and the conversation around how we're investing in our communities and how we're addressing the housing crisis in general. Because that is, as we're facing that pandemic crisis, we're going to be facing a very serious housing crisis because of the economy really just taking a downturn through this whole pandemic, and none more than those that are on strapped incomes, like the seniors, retirees, and folks living in mobile home complex in their fixed incomes and trying to make ends meet, as well as the tenants and so many other folks, right? But I'm trying to get her on the show for a while. I'm so happy to be able to have her on. I'm going to go ahead and bring on, and if you can turn on your video, Lupe, and your turn on, unmute yourself. So I'll introduce Lupe Ramirez. Lupe is Anaheim resident for 5 years, retired from LAUSD in 2003. She works with Native American voter rights programs for 25 years and is currently Rancho La Paz's Homeowners Association president. Welcome to the show, Lupe.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, first of all, I like your headset. It's you're ready to make some telemarketing calls. I see.
Well, we've been doing a lot of calling people in Anaheim and trying to see what the issues are for a couple of potential candidates. Okay. And this is just much faster than trying to use a phone.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love it. I need one of those. Give me a good deal on that. Right. So, yeah. So I see that behind you, you have seniors votes count.
Yes.
Like safe. Okay.
We do vote.
Yeah.
And usually in large numbers.
Yeah. True.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that's important. So let's just get straight to it. Lupe, you were one of the people that was instrumental in Anaheim around the Rancho La Paz mobile home complex and the fight against the particular mobile home owner who, as it turned out, had a long history of doing these kinds of things to the residents of mobile homes, which included in crazy high rent hikes from one day to the next, and really just trying to squeeze people out of their homes and to be able to maximize his profit, right? So I mean, how did you, what was your reaction when you first found out about it, and
Well,
You know,
I got my letter in February, and the original increase was going to be almost $400. And I looked at it and I thought, oh, this is awful. This is one of the reasons that a lot of people chose to live here is that it's a nice park and it's one of the lesser expensive parks. And I just put the letter away, didn't think anything of it, and I walked outside, and all of a sudden there's people out there talking about they have nowhere to go, they're going to be homeless, they're going to live in tents, they have no kids, they've outlived all their other relatives. What are we supposed to do? And I thought, well, I was really good at protesting in the 60s. So I thought, let's get together. So we decided to have a meeting and talk about it. And then I started digging into what happened, and why was this going on, and found out the whole history of around 2004. A group of investors decided, here's some easy pickings. Seniors probably won't fight back. They probably figure most people are, pretty much demented and ill and probably don't have the ability. So a group of investors started buying up mobile home parks, and they actually had their plan online, which really surprised me. And it had like 4 steps. The first one was raise the rent. The second one was raise the rent. The third one was raise the rent. And the fourth one was raise the rent.
Surprise.
And then when they can't afford it anymore, then you foreclose. And they've been taking over parks like this all over the country. Started up pretty much in the Midwest, but now California, and this particular owner here, his name is John Saunders. He bought this park, and he had also bought the park Huntington Shore Cliffs, and he made 300 seniors homeless when he bought that park. But they didn't fight him, they just figured that's the way it was. And I just thought, no, there's no such thing as that's the way it is, not without some kind of fight. And this park here has almost 400 residents, and 100 of them live in Fullerton, and the other 300 live in Anaheim. So we actually have 2 different cities in one park, and it's been pretty interesting how it all works. And in the assistance that we've been trying to get from the cities, we've gotten really good assistance from the Fullerton side for the Fullerton residents. But from the get-go, Anaheim they put together this little dog and pony show where Sidhu got John Saunders, and he also had Fassel, and he also had Brandman, I believe, meet with a couple of residents. Marino's our city councilman, but apparently Marino wasn't even asked to come and talk to us or listen to it, because we had already been writing to him, and he'd already been showing up here to see, what we could do. So, then he decided that, well, we'll put a group together and maybe they can negotiate something with Saunders. And they said, okay, look, this is what we did for the seniors. We gave them an opportunity to negotiate their increases. That's all the city of Anaheim did. They weren't going to do anything. They weren't going to do any assistance. They weren't going to do any kind of rent control or anything. And we went to meetings, countless amounts of meetings where we had everybody come in, and there'd be people that would come in angry, and they'd have people that would stand up and cry because they didn't know what they were going to do or where they were going to live. And, the change on our mayor's, our mayor's face didn't even change, is what I meant to say. He was just like looking at his watch to see how much longer are they speak. And one of the things I noticed about him right off the bat is every time we had a Spanish-speaking person who needed an interpreter, that's when Sidhu would go to the bathroom and not come back. Every single time. And I thought, oh gosh, this is a little bit more apparent of what the issues are here. Anyway, we did go and negotiate with him on our increases. And what it amounted to is we had the opportunity of paying one big increase and getting killed and getting shot, or going to talk to him and spreading him out and just kind of have him stab us over 7 years or 10 years until, people still couldn't afford to live here. And, we started talking to the press, and we started talking to the different TV stations, and a lot of people just couldn't believe this was going on. And we got sympathy from, pretty much a whole cross-section of people and other seniors in different places. And there was only one group that was absolutely no help at all, and that's the Golden State Mobile Home Owners League, which is known as Gizmo. They don't believe in what we're doing. They want to do things their way, and they do nothing.
You heard it called out.
Yeah, I think I talked to somebody from there.
Mary Jo Barisic.
Perhaps.
That's her.
Yeah, I know that there's there's all sorts of interests that play right with it, and so that's part of what you found out, right? I mean, you were political with I think Native American.
Yes, I've been working in the voters' rights project for a long time.
Be sure today.
And all right, we go right now. Our projects are down in Alaska, and we go to the villages and make sure that the people's rights aren't being violated when they vote. Because one of the conditions when they bought Alaska was that everything for the natives, the Yupiks and the Gwich'ins, that everything would be in their native language. Anything that came from the government. But then we have a new president who thinks that those people are wetbacks because they don't look like Indians.
Wow.
And they started not doing that. So we were sent out there to make sure that either they have an interpreter or that their ballots are in their native languages.
Wow.
So they send us out in teams, and we go and stay a couple of days through the election.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I mean, I just brought that up because I mean, it's like you know what it is to take on the government.
Oh, absolutely.
National or the local governments, the state and city, and so I mean, you were made for this fight. I guess they didn't know who they were effing with, you know, when they mess with you, Lupe. But you know, I mean, but then also there's, I mean, we think about seniors, and I mean, everybody can feel like, you know, these people have worked all their lives. They're on very fixed income. They were having to choose between taking medicine, like literally like, you know, splitting up their medicine, like their pills in half so that they can make it last longer. I mean, having to really take different, and the Anaheim City Council with, you know, Mayor Sidhu and the majority, they didn't care. They did not care. You all went and spoke at City Council, you know, very passionately and forcefully, and they would not budge. They had it in mind how they were going to play this, and it was how was that for you to see? Like, did you really think that Anaheim politics was this messed up?
No, I didn't. See, I was, you know, an employee with LA Unified School District, so I lived in Long Beach for about 30 years, and you know, had been involved in a few things there, not so much. And I at one time was a city commissioner for the city of Signal Hill. You know, and I looked at, I mean, I see how things work, and in a big district like LA Unified, you see a lot of crazy things and how they work. And I just could not believe that the city of Anaheim could just be so incredibly heartless. You know, I mean, Lucille Kring was hilarious the night that she said that the city of kindness wasn't Anaheim anymore, because she was referring to how they used to use that phrase. And it was right on time, because they are not. You know, I mean, we've got Moreno and we've got Barnes who genuinely care about the people. But, you know, the other four, it's business. They care about business. And I could not believe that there wasn't even any sympathy. You know, there wasn't even any, I mean, they were just probably thinking, you know, it's a bunch of old trailer trash people. We really don't care.
Yeah. And it's like, it feels like they're getting away with it. And they practically could, if the voters don't really rise up in November and elect, you know, candidates that are not, you know, that those kind of actions against the most vulnerable in our community should not just go like without, you know, and I mean, I'll speak personally on this. You know, I mean, Jordan Brandman in particular, you know, being supposedly a Democrat and supposedly on the left, you know, he was also not really trying to support y'all, if I understand correctly. And yeah, I could not have been angrier at that. Especially when he then tried to run for border supervisors and get the DPOC's endorsement, you know, and I spoke loud and clear, and so many other people did. Like, you turned a blind eye, and their plight fell on deaf ears, you know, and that you cannot do that and think that you can get away with it and be like, when we endorse you, we endorse that kind of activity, and it doesn't matter who does it. And it's like ironic that Denise Barnes, a Republican or right-leaning person, conservative, is more on you know, on the support of on the side of Jose Moreno than he is. It
was very interesting. Yeah, it was after I first started talking to some of the people in here, because I've only been an Orange County resident for 5 years, and I started talking to some of the people in here, and I had one of the men tell me that lives here, you know, most of the people here that retired, you know, years ago when they're in their 70s or 80s. They get the minimum Social Security payments that they used to then, because they didn't make high salaries then compared to now. And of course, inflation hasn't kept up with the Social Security increases. and the cost of living has not been anything near what it was promised when it was first when Social Security was first an inception. And this man I'm standing to talking to me tells me he eats 2 bags of potatoes a month. That's it. He buys 2 bags of potatoes at the beginning of the month. By the time he pays his space rental, that's all he's got to eat. Of course, since then, we've started a food program in here, and we're feeding 58 residents every Wednesday with enough groceries and milk and fresh bread and things so that they don't have to starve. But people literally were starving in this park to pay those increases.
Yeah.
And we have another one coming up in October, and that's going to be another 17% increase. And that's going to put some people already out of their homes.
Yeah, it's sick to see that happen. And maybe we can talk a little bit about, could you contrast how working with Fullerton was, seems like more positive, or like what kind of gains were you able to make there?
Well, Fullerton actually put together several programs. I mean, first of all, Mayor Silva was mayor at the time that we first started, and since then it's changed, and now it's Jan Flory. But from the get-go, they gave people time to speak. They listened to people. They asked questions. It wasn't just get up there and talk, and then we'll do our shopping on our cell phones or whatever else we're going to do and pretend like we're listening. But Fullerton was just different. I mean, Mayor Silva was calling me constantly, asking me, what can we do? What's the problem? What would be the solution? What do you think? And we were in lockstep, him and I, in a lot of things that we thought we could do. And they did actually implement, they didn't do rent control, but they did actually implement a subsidy program for their residents that can't afford their increases, and they actually can get a subsidy every month from the city.
That's not something that happened in Anaheim.
Well, Anaheim said they had a seniors program that O'Neill said that he had put this program together. And it turned out that it was like $300 for about 100 people for 3 months. And they were touting it as, we've saved the seniors. We've come up with rent assistance for them. And I mean, it never even got to any mobile home parks before it was out of money. But that's all they did. And they didn't do anything, absolutely anything. And when we would talk, I mean, we would just see Sidhu actually getting mad at us, because we were bringing it up over and over and over and over. And, we had nights when, 40, 50 people spoke. At 11 o'clock at night, we were still speaking. And then whenever Marina would try to put a rent control initiative or a freeze on the rent, Sidhu wouldn't even let him put it on the ballot, on the agenda.
Right. That was, I believe that's when around the time when they increased the number of votes that you needed in order to put something on the agenda from 2 to 3.
Right.
And he was unable to get that third vote because
exactly,
because Jordan Brandon would not join Denise Barnes with Jose Moreno. It's and it was just a series of situations where I would just go there and just be sickened and hear to everybody, and I think that's perhaps one of the things where you can't really convey a level of rage and frustration that comes to you until you are faced in a situation where you're literally looking at your representatives and you're hearing all these people say the same things, and they're just, it doesn't matter what anybody says, they're not going to change their minds because the people who funded their campaigns have already sealed that deal.
Well, this owner here has donated to all 4 of the other candidates, and also he's building that complex that's going to be in that shopping center. That's Anaheim Hills, that shopping center that they're going to be closing up and turning into condos. It's the same builder. It's the same guy.
Yeah. So that's the way the cookie crumbles after Citizens United and PACs and the ability for these big wealthy individuals to just buy up our democracy under our feet. But through all of this darkness, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, right, Lupe?
Well, actually, two. One is we still are going to do everything we can to attempt to recall Harry Sidhu.
Woo!
Because our movement that we had started, we hit a couple of snags along the way, And we decided to suspend it and start it again because that's just right when the pandemic was announced, and we weren't going to be able to go anyplace and get signatures, and we weren't going to be able to get that 20,000 signatures that we needed. So we decided we would just go ahead and suspend it and then start over again. And as of Saturday, we're ready to go ahead and start with the intent petition. And again, because even if he's only got 6 months left by the time this campaign is over, we still want him to be the shamed mayor that was recalled because he just doesn't give a damn.
Yeah, it sounds like the very similar situation to Trump. Like,
right, and
no,
we're not going to give up.
But we're going to impeach this guy. We're going to make him look bad, and he really should be. God, there's just a lot of people in politics that really make me just like, I don't know, like rumble in my stomach. Like, maybe get sick to my stomach. That man by far is just like a heartless individual, as much as they come, completely bought and sold by the special interests that fund his campaign and make him wealthy rich. And they're his friends. You know, he's a wealthy man himself. Lives in a freaking acreage upon acres of. I think he has like rhinos and a pond and hippos. He has a lot of money. Yeah, so he can afford to like, those expensive pills to help him sleep at night, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then the other bright spot has been Sharon Quirk-Silva, state assembly person, and of course I think somebody who really gives a damn. I mean, her and her husband, they care. They really do care. That's the two politicians that I almost wished I had bought my place on the Fullerton side because it would have been better because I'm actually on the Anaheim side. Anyway, we talked with her at first and, kind of just getting things off the ground. And as we spoke to her more and more and she listened more and more and sent a lot of letters and so on, she said, we got to do something. And we were trying originally to get involved or get added into 1482, which was a rent control bill for apartments. And because of Gizmo, they had actually separated us out because Gizmo was saying that mobile homeowners didn't want to be a part of it. And they were taking them as the spokesman for the entire state. They were telling the people up in Sacramento they represented a million mobile homeowners, of which there's only 400,000. So I don't know where the rest came from.
They were telling me that they wanted to fight for a stronger bill. Is that not the case?
Yeah. Well, so of course they got nothing, and they could never give us a real good reason for why they were knocking us out as we're trying to get added. Anyway, finally Sharon Silva said that she thought that I was right, that the people in this park were right, that we should have been added into 1482. So she has written 2589, which is a state assembly bill, and it gives us exactly the same protections as 1482, which is the 5% plus CPI. It went through the assembly and passed the week before last, and it is in the Senate now, and we're waiting to see what's going to happen. And I'm really hoping that there's not a bunch of to-dos there, and they'll actually look at it as not something that's going to be hurting John Saunders, but instead will be benefiting 400 residents. And it would be for the entire state, because we're not the only park that's going through this. He's going to keep buying them up. He's going to keep putting people out, and it's going to be all over the state. So when that gets through the Senate, if the Senate doesn't pass it, I think we're really going to have to really start going after the state senators and ask them, with the housing crisis we have, do you realize that a lot of the people in here, if they become homeless, I mean, we're talking about people that are tethered to oxygen machines and wheelchairs. Where are they going to stay? Where are we going to get a tent with electricity to run our electric oxygen generators? And that's the one thing that we're hoping that it gets passed within this next few days, and the next session anyway. And because of the time that they're behind because of COVID, they can only talk about a bill for one day, which works for us because it's the 3 days where everybody keeps kicking up things and going back and looking up things that just make it, go on forever. So that's what we're waiting for. We're waiting to find out. And if we get our bill, we would be protected for 10 years. And, to be honest, most of the people in 10 years would be dead here.
Yeah. So, but I mean, so would this bill mitigate some of the rent increases you've already taken, or
it has a whatever the date was, whatever we were paying in March would be retroactive back to that date for the increase. So it would be one of the 119 increases instead of the next one that's going to hit in October. So we were trying to hope that it all happens before the next increase hits us. You know,
Right.
and then we had the craziness of the leases that the man wrote. We had a lease that he prepared for the people here that was over 160 pages. And when you've got seniors that aren't really as sharp as they used to be, and you hand them something that's 160 pages, he scared the hell out of most people here. And they signed a lot of leases that people don't have the faintest idea what they signed.
Yeah, I mean, that is a crazy part of the whole process, all that paperwork. And
Right.
I'm sure that people abuse that, how complicated the law is to make it purposefully confusing. And I mean, so is this company, is this like a multinational company or a large company, or because I know there's groups such as Blackstone Group who like follow similar tactics.
Well, no, this actually, John Saunders is actually the real estate agent himself. I mean, is the real estate owner himself.
Mhm.
And although, you know, he used to say John Saunders owner, but now he is signing letters, John Saunders for the owners. So I imagine he's probably got other investors now because he knows this, you know, he knows we're not just going to roll over. And I think he just expected, like all the other parks, the seniors just roll over and start dying off and move in with kids. And no, we're not going to do that. And I've told the people here, don't let someone kick you out of your house. You know, we've downsized, moved into these places, figured we'd be safe for the rest of our years that we've got, and everything would have been. And nobody moved in here willy-nilly. They planned. They knew how long their money would last. And then you have somebody come up and say, "Oh, it's $400 a month more than what you're gonna pay. You know, what you agreed to." Yeah. And the people that had sold the park before had some kind of agreement with him that I guess he got a break on it, or they're holding paperwork or something, that in the lease there had to be a clause that we would not hold them liable for them knowing that when he bought this park, he was going to do this to the people that had been here. When we all moved in here, we were promised, you know, maybe $20 a month increases once a year, things like that. And then, of course, that promise was broken when they sold to him.
Yeah, that's why it's frustrating when some of the solutions are, oh, we can negotiate with them. Right. Oh, they said no. Or, I mean, look, the subsidy is great that it keeps people in their homes, right? But I mean, so we'll be thankful for that. But
yeah,
I mean,
but in reality, you know, you've got a city subsidizing a rent gouger. You know, and it's not good. I mean, I'm glad they did it, but you know, I could tell that, you know, nobody really liked doing it because you are subsidizing a gouger.
Yeah. It's, I mean, it's kind of interesting that, I mean, this guy's a real estate developer. Like he's not just owns a few properties, right?
Oh, no, he's got quite a bit of property.
Right.
We had looked up originally when we first started doing research on him and showed that he had some either interest or owned, you know, like I think at the time we were looking it up at like 19 different parks in different places. And then he would stand up in front of us and tell us he only owns one park. You know, this is his only park. Well, we have a lady here that used to live in the park in Huntington Shore Cliffs and lost her house to him. And now she's about ready to lose this one to him too, because she can't make this next increase. I mean, can you imagine 2 times having the predator buy your park and then making you homeless twice?
Jesus.
Yeah.
That's just ridiculous. You know, and so this is what, but you know, is a manifestation of unbridled capitalism in the Berkshire and Hathaways of the world that are taking advantage of this situation so that we can, so they can, you know, kick poor and you know, defenseless folks out, you know, seniors, people that are not going to be able to like really wage a fight in order to like to balance their portfolio, to increase, you know, their profit margins. It's just the worst of the worst when it comes to like, you know, showing what you know, unbridled, unregulated capitalism brings to our communities.
And there is a total disregard across this whole country for seniors anymore. During the time that AARP was a big organization, the senior vote really meant something, and it kind of scared politicians a little bit. But it's not that way anymore. It's just like, well, that's just one more group you have to run over. Even with this pandemic, the word was out even before people were getting sick that they would put the young people on the ventilators first because they'd have a better chance of surviving. And the old people would just be sent off to, like Soylent Green,
Yeah, that's not okay. So that was hard enough, right, to go through, and then boom, this pandemic hits, and yeah, I'm like I mentioned before I introduced you, this housing crisis really has the communities cash-strapped communities in really untenable situations, and so I'm really worried about the next crisis that's going to come as we start opening things up and whatnot. But also I around that time that you were going through that, Lupe, I know that there was a John Oliver episode of on what is it, the Late Night with John Oliver, where basically broke down how investors, they go to school to learn how to do this to people like yourself, and it's a whole systematic approach to doing this, and like you mentioned, like the subsidizing, just giving money to help this is not helping the root of the problem. The root of the problem is these people's freaking greed, right? And it's national, and it's been happening for years. And
right. There was also an episode on NCI of two brothers that had bought a mobile home park and raised the rent so much that the people couldn't pay, and they found him. Everybody in this park has those little funny looking garden gnomes. Yeah. Anyway, they found the man underneath the mobile home stabbed with a garden gnome. That was on NCI, and I thought that was so funny because it was also what's going on here. I've had people say, find his address. I still have my World War I gun. I don't think so.
A gnome of sorts.
Yeah, exactly. I still got the musket.
Yeah, somebody's mentioning guillotines, so that's it's where that's that time of the
It's another way.
It's that time
exactly.
again. You were also saying I believe that the people were interested in doing a documentary on the story.
One of the premier documentary makers in this country, and we have an agreement that we were to keep it kind of on the down low, so I can't mention his name, but probably everybody knows who he is. Anyway, he sent his photographer out here, his videographer out here to interview some of the people. And he did interviews with a few people. And then after he had talked to a lot of people, he had come back to me and he had said, we have a little problem. And I said, what's the problem? And he said, you know how hard it is to find sympathy for old Republican people. They see what's happening to them, but still all they can do is tell you how much they love Trump. And they dropped it. They just said, it's not going to fly, because when he was interviewing people, the people were still so 100% capitalist, 100% Republican, 100% Trump supporters. To this day, I think probably the fact that I was trying to get some signatures one day on a petition, and it had to be registered Democrats, and I couldn't find enough Democrats in this park to actually finish signing the petition.
Wow. Rough.
And they still love Trump. They just still, and yet it's because of people. He was the same kind of real estate investor. And
yeah, that's a sad thing.
Yeah, exactly. Why are we supporting an enemy?
The tribalism runs deep.
Yeah, it does. And yeah. I think that's probably the most ironic part, because, I've got some really nice dump Trump t-shirts, and I won't wear them. Being the homeowners president, I won't wear them here. I'll wear them if I'm leaving the park, but I won't wear them in the park.
Yeah, so how has that been for you? That's the most interesting thing I wanted to learn. No, because how do you talk to these people, and try to get? It's hard enough to get Democrats all on the same page, right? So, if you are dealing with folks on all sorts of places on the political spectrum, they're old and cranky, and have some, like homophobic, anti-black or xenophobic kind of like, like,
Yeah, we get quite a few of those.
yeah. So that's hard. But I mean, it seems like you manage it as best as you can, right?
Well, I look at it from the standpoint that, I understand some of the people and their feelings, but see, our generation, and I actually went to Woodstock, and I know that this is the age group of a lot of people in this park that actually went to Woodstock. And now they've got Trump stickers, and I just want to know what the hell happened to you.
Yeah, there is a running theory of a Christian guilt that emerged in the 80s. And that a lot of people like feeling shame about some of the things they did in the 70s and stuff, reformed and just, just settled down. But
well, one of the proudest moments in my life was in 1970 when we shut down Washington, D.C. for D-Day to let them know that we have no damn business in Vietnam. Look what you're doing. And I mean, I was on one side of the bridge throwing rocks, and the soldiers were on the other side, and it was an interesting time. It's interesting now because now I have grandchildren that are protesting, and they send me the videos of them standing on top of cars with protest signs and stuff, and I'm like, all right, there's my kids.
Go get them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, do you draw any comparisons, or are there anything you're noticing comparing these two times? Like, I don't know, about how the movements are conducted, or what the young people say, or
it's interesting because I think it's great that the millennials are standing up. I mean, this whole issue about color, I notice my grandkids don't give a damn about color, whereas I have brothers that would kill themselves if they thought their children who would marry and have mixed kids. I mean, it's just really amazing to me. And I'm really appreciative of the fact that they have open minds and think. And most of them, there's a few that still are, they still listen to their parents. But anyway, I think it's fantastic. And their tactics okay. I mean, the looting that was going on like in Santa Monica and Rodeo Drive, that had nothing to do with protest. That was organized flash mob robberies.
Yeah,
because the vans would pull up, the kids would jump out, they'd go wipe out the store, the vans would they'd jump back in the vans and drive off. That was just they knew it was an opportune time to do those things. And I don't think they were any part of any movement.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've seen videos that they hit up, was it Ulta in Anaheim Plaza that time? This folks just went, it was like 5 folks, and they were just like, boom, 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 just put everything in your backpack and let's go.
Yeah, I'm liberating this lip gloss.
Yes.
Freedom, lip gloss for the people.
Yeah, there was one thing posted too where some people had come into Anaheim and they were going to go start marking up a T-Mobile store. And the kids ran out there and told them, get out of our town. You didn't come here for that. And they chased them away.
Oh, yeah, I saw that video.
Yeah, and I thought, now see, that's what you do. Because none of the intent ever when we were protesting in the 60s and the late 60s and the early 70s was to make change with where it needed to be, not to harm people, not to harm properties. We didn't light stores on fire. We didn't do that kind of stuff.
I don't know. There was the Weather Underground.
Yeah. Well, that was I mean, there were a few real hard radicals, but I mean,
for the most part.
Yeah, but for the most part, there was always a compassion for people. I mean, we were the free love generation and that kind of stuff. And people were good to people. They were nice to people. If you saw somebody on the street that needed food and you had food, you shared your food. If I mean, that's just how it was, And that part's changed, and I think that's the one part about the kids that I saw in this protest that I thought they're getting it back a little bit. The lack of compassion is, I think, what probably bothers me most about everything that's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like looking at the case you're fighting, I mean, how can you not have compassion for this situation? Like any 101 ethics student would tell you this is incredibly problematic. Like
right.
The rent increases that are being imposed on you guys. And I mean, that's one thing I hope maybe the next generation can develop is a better sympathy for people. And I feel like, I mean, we were talking about Donald Trump and stuff, but isn't he the ultimate manifestation of this I'm the winner mentality where you'll do anything to get to the top? And then look at what these, but we'll see that coming. But
and that attitude of, I've got mine, screw you. No, that's not how it works. And and I think too, with older people, and I think the one thing that kind of blows me away too, is that they're saying, I never got any help, and I had to start my business by myself, and I didn't get this, and I didn't get that. And I thought, wow, your delivery company, you are using a freeway. I mean, you got a building that probably has utilities in it. I mean, those things didn't fall from heaven. Those were all the things that were put into place for everybody to get ahead. So this BS now of I never got any help, that just drives me crazy. We all got some kind of help.
Yeah.
When I go to the library and get a book, that's help. When I drive on the 91 freeway, the freeway's there, that's help. I mean, it's just crazy that people don't see that.
Yeah.
When they didn't let black and brown people have like loans to get homes, and they only let white folks, that was help.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. What about that?
Yeah. When they get their Social Security check every month, hey, that's help.
Yeah.
It might not be big enough, but that's help.
True.
Absolutely. You're a very determined woman, Lupe, and and also are very you're very soft spoken, but just really direct in your message, and so I think you, as better than most, have been really being able to articulate the plight of the people that that you represent as a president, but also the community as a whole. Because I think even the ones that would be on the far right of the equation still have to, at the very least, understand that you have their best interests and everybody's best interest in mind at the mobile home complex.
Yeah,
so
I think most people in here do. I mean, I walk outside and there's a bag of the most beautiful oranges I've ever seen. Just a little note that says, thank you for what you do for us and whatever. Everybody in here knows that, that putting up the fight, I had the plan.
That's right. I'm that person. I'm the one.
I've had some of the, the more, what should I say? Some of the more chauvinistic kind of guys in here say, God, I'm glad you're on our side.
Yeah, I mean, well, it gives me hope for the future of that. Folks can put aside their national differences as far as national politics and kind of just look at locally at the issues at play and whether or not folks are really representing the interests of the community or their own selfish interests and political expedience and career politicianism and all of the things that just destroy our democracy and destroy the trust that the community have or trying to build between the elected officials and the community, or even the police and the community, right? So we can't have this when all of a sudden these people are doing things that then goes against the very things that which they were supposed to hold as sacred and sanctimonious.
Yeah, when I worked for LA School District before I became the transportation manager, I'd been out in the field for a long time, and even at some point worked as a transportation. We had our own little transportation cops that handled problems on buses and so on, and I did that for a while. And I saw LAPD officers pull kids off of buses and start beating them up, and you'd have to ask them, "Why are you hitting him?" And they would say, well, I asked him some questions and he won't answer me. I said, this is a busload full of deaf children, for Pete's sakes. I mean, they never did have a heart. I've seen them pull kids off. And the thing is, now they they put the knee in the neck, but they used to step on their heads. They would lay them on the ground and step on their heads and not let them lift their heads. I saw that so many times.
I've seen Kutsu Riot.
Yeah, I'm glad that it's finally getting under the skin of everybody, of the young people. They're not seeing it as that's your problem.
Yeah, I mean, are you in that on that point? Have you seen things improve as far as the treatment of Latinos and Native folks, and just people of color here in California since when you were growing up to now, like, or it's just about the same? It's just filmed more. Like, what?
I mean, there still is a big difference on how we're treated. I mean, I know. And when I was working with the school district, that I got skipped over for a lot of positions because my name happened to be Lupe, and if it had been Jane, I wouldn't have been. You could score number one on multiple promotional exams and just keep getting skipped over. And I know it had to do with the name. You always anticipate that Lupe would be different, or probably not even speaking without an accent and things like that. And and I grew up a farm worker kid in Colorado. In northern Colorado, and they were really, really mean to us there. So, I mean, when we moved to California, automatically you saw an improvement, but there's still always been a difference. You're treated different, and when you happen to be a minority female, you always have to work 3 times as hard to just be good. Even though you could be great at your job, you just have to work so much harder, and plus, you always have to be the perfect person because, you don't want them to turn around extra hour, you stay extra hours, you eat lunch at your desk. You have to give all so that you'll just be considered as an equal.
Wow. Hoping we make progress on that.
Yeah, I hope it changes. Yeah, I hope it changes. And I've got 2 granddaughters, and I hope it changes.
100%. Your story could, is told by so many other women, trailblazers that were, fighting for all sorts of rights, women's rights, LGBT rights, like civil rights, human rights, just period. And understanding that the odds were stacked against you. And once things started to, to go, go the opposite direction, like, it was because of that constant push and constant demands to say, like, we matter, we deserve respect, and you're not going to, like, keep working us twice as hard and giving us half as,
Exactly.
half the pay. That cannot stand. So
Exactly.
And
I think the business people, like, let's say the city council, they see Disneyland, they see the hotels, but damn it, who in the hell is cleaning them hotels, and who in the hell is keeping the park clean, and who in the hell is maintaining everything? You've got those people here too, and they sure as hell should be able to live close to work, and they shouldn't be priced out of the areas where their jobs are. And that's the one thing that really bothers me about Anaheim.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's when the tourism industry, right? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it just speaks to the need to, intersectionality among all these groups. I mean, it's almost a human condition. It's weird that there can be so many people that are struggling under, but if we all came together, that we can do great things, so, I mean, what little we can do on our show here is to at least share this story and try to spread that message and get more people aware of these things, right? Because, and maybe you can talk more about, what is this, People for Anaheim, or what's the name of
Anaheim
this?
for the People.
Anaheim for the People. Can you tell me
So far it's Anaheim for the business, but we want it to be Anaheim for the people.
Yeah.
And, we've asked a few questions, like, what are the ththings that are most important to you? And again, the same thing. They want to be able to live close to where they work. They want to make sure that, their kids are getting a good education. And there are several people on our little group that, are very, very interested in what's happening with education. And, people that, a lot of these pop-up pantries and the food in the park and things like that. We've all kind of put that together because we just don't want to see anybody suffer. You can't, to think that there was a man in this park that was eating 2 bags of potatoes for an entire month because that's all he could afford to eat, and it was filling. My heart broke. We just have to change that stuff. It's just a matter of you can't turn the other way. You can't look the other way. You have to go ahead and address the concern. not just talk about it. And you have to get off your hiney and do something. And we want the Anaheim for the people to actually say, okay, look, here's your 4 council people that always vote against average Joes. And, you tell me why we should keep supporting them. And when we ask the questions, one of the questions that we ask is, what do you think has improved since Mayor Sidhu has been the mayor? And nobody can give you an answer. What do you think's improved? Nobody can give you an answer. In fact,
business, just maybe profits for small
pocketbooks of developers,
right?
The rich, and
and and it's
Artie Moreno.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what's got to be part of. Every fight has different components to it, and even if we get our bill, we can't just drop everything and just say, "Oh, we accomplished it." We have to take the people out of the city council that don't give a damn about regular average Joes. We've got to get them out.
Big time.
Yes, we do.
God. And we will.
Yes.
And we will. And retired people have time to do this kind of stuff.
There you go.
Yeah. So on that note, like you mentioned, you're working hard on and trying to get this the recall Sidhu going. You have Anaheim for the people going. There's going to be all sorts of candidates running for office in Anaheim, and so folks are going to have to make those big decisions. But and yourself are talking to the Anaheim, to the community in Anaheim. So, like, are you hopeful? Are you believing that with Trump being on the ticket, that being the driving force that brings people out to support? Democrats and or like progressive community oriented people.
I think that right now with the demonstrations that are going on, more people are going to vote because they're so concerned about what's happening. There's a lot of people who really didn't understand that. Like I've got lots of black friends, and I'm not just saying that. I've got lots of black friends that have voice. And I never had to sit my daughter down and tell her, when the cop stops you, you may die. And they do. They have to tell their kids, you may die. Don't look at him. Don't meet it. Don't make eye contact. Look down at your shoes and whatever. And yes sir, no sir. And and that's always been. And I just don't understand how come people never saw it before. And I think that the awakening with a lot of people could probably get more votes. And also the fact that, the statistics I was looking up not that long ago, the city of Anaheim is actually 57% Latino. So there's no reason for that existing council to be making these decisions that just really don't benefit the average Latin family in the city. Yeah. They've got to get out to vote, and they've got to change it. And 35,000 new millennial voters will be voting in California for this next election.
Yeah, you got that wave out there.
Oh yeah, and I mean they're good. They're so much better at electronic stuff and everything than we are. And they know how to put together. Some of these websites they throw together in 15 minutes, and they're so impressive. Good for them. But I'm hopeful that there'll be some changes, and I'm hopeful that it'll get a little easier for minorities, and that it just gets to a point where you just have to say, the majority people are no longer the majority people. What's the fight? You're not going to lose anything. Nobody's asking for more. Everybody's just asking for equal.
As Juan Alvarez is saying, Lupe Ramirez for Anaheim mayor. How do you feel about that, huh?
Well, see, I'm not as foolish as some of these other people. I know after a certain age, you have no business in politics. It frosts me to see 80-year-old white men with Parkinson's making decisions for my granddaughters.
Yeah. Well, I God knows that we would benefit, the threefold if we had somebody like you, Lupe, on the council to be able to make these kind of decisions, with the reasonable mind, and the forward thinking mind that you have. So, Yeah, I support Lupe Ramirez for Anaheim mayor. Woo! There we go. She just announced right here on the show, everyone.
Okay.
Just kidding.
That is fake news.
No, just homeowners president was enough.
Yeah.
And I'm really hoping to meet my successor soon.
Don't you know, like, yeah.
Gotta retire from this work at some point too.
Yeah, well, when you retire, you find out you work a lot more.
Evidently so.
That's what I hear. But that's good because, you know, it keeps you motivated and active. But we desperately need fresh, new faces. You know, but more importantly, progressive faces, people, community oriented, public servants, not career politicians. You know, I mean,
I agree.
Enough can't be said about our Dr. Jose Moreno on the council. So shout out to him. You know,
yes, and Denise Barnes also. I mean, when we were first putting together our food program and we hadn't figured out how to get food from the pantry and the food pantries and so on, Denise Barnes would show up here every week with a truckload of meat to give to the people in the park that she knew were in need. And we're not her constituents, you know, we're not her. You know, she just showed up because she said, "I know what it's like," and that was it. I mean, and see, that's the thing. The other board members, except for Herm Moreno, they don't know what it's like.
Right.
Yeah. That's a fact. But depending on what happens in November, things could change, and also with this recall, CDU. But Lupe, I'm one of the reasons why we couldn't get you on the show earlier was because you had you were giving food to seniors and
we're still doing that, but we've changed
every
it
Monday.
now. Yeah, we've changed it now to Wednesday afternoons. With COVID, you know, we don't have the use of the clubhouse, so we have to get the boxes and then we sit in my carport and put together shelf-stable food and then deliver it to 58 different residences here. So we have to do it in the middle of the day, and we have to do it when we've got light outside. And, you know, we don't have the advantage of the kitchen for some of the food we used to get before that we could break down and stuff. We can't do that now because you're not, you know, it wouldn't be a sanitary thing to do. And the last thing we want to do is make anybody sick. But we still are feeding 50 people, 58 different residents here, you know, some couples and so on. And, you know, it just makes me feel good to know that we're doing something tangible. We're not just talking about it.
Yeah, are you doing that as a park, or is that a separate group? Or
well, it all started out with, like I said, the man with the potatoes. I first started buying butter for his potatoes, and then it just kind of went from there.
Upgrade, some salt.
Yeah,
some
exactly.
Green onions.
But and then we have a lot of support now from several different, you know, community activists. You know that we can call and say, hey, we're kind of low on, you know, fresh veggies and things like that, and sure as heck, somebody will show up here and start, you know, unloading boxes, and we get some stuff from the Orange County Food Bank and so on. And we're actually a, you know, pretty good big program now. It takes like 8 of us once a week to put the bags together and deliver them to the people. And of course, we have the no contact delivery because of the COVID, and that we're all older and we know we have to be careful.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, that's amazing, and that's an example of the grassroots action that people can take. Yeah, I mean, it's great to see that you're hitting all of the areas. You're hitting the state government, the multiple local municipalities. You have grassroots programs running. I mean, this is a war on all fronts. And,
right.
Yeah, I just want to say I mean, that's great. It's a great example of how to conduct a campaign. So.
Yeah, there's always more to do. And like I said, even if we get our bill, we can't just let this drop. Then the next thing we have to do is we have to start making sure that we put candidates in office that represent our interests. And we got to get out the vote. And this BS of my vote doesn't count stuff, we've got to stop that.
It's not irrelevant. That's what I like to say. I mean,
every vote matters.
Yes.
all votes matter. Oh man, I gotta.
Don't do that.
I gotta work on my stuff. But we've talked before, you and I, at different moments and stuff. But I share the sentiment that a lot of our viewers are having, as far as like just being happy to hear from you. Your wise words and your passion, and and your call to action around trying to fight for our communities and do the right thing for our representatives. So I'm really just grateful and honored to have you on the show today. And I want to give you some a chance to maybe plug some things that that are coming up that people can support you in, because there's just so much work to do on different fronts, and you are on so many fronts. But how can folks stay connected and support the issues that matter to you?
Well, the biggest thing that's going to be coming up is we're going to have to get 22,000 signatures in order to start, to put the recall vote on the ballot. And we're going to be needing people to help us with petitions because, it's kind of starting here in this park, and then we're working with people in a couple of other areas of the city. And, it's not like we can go knocking door to door. Most of the people in here, got a lot of people on walkers and canes, and that's not going to quite work out. But we will be looking for people to go ahead and take petitions and get the petition signed so we can get the recall, because we have to let Sadhu know and the other board members know it's not okay.
That's right.
And that's the only way we can do it.
So fight back.
Stand up, fight back.
So we'll be looking for people that actually want to go ahead and get petitions passed, or sit out at Walmart and get signatures, or wherever it is they want to go, or when we start having events again, and you can go there with some petitions and get some signatures. Because and when it comes to getting rid of Sadhu, it seems to be very nonpartisan, because both Republicans and Democrats don't seem to like him very much.
Right. So hopefully, folks can capitalize on that. I mean, the man, if it had not been for the split vote with what's her name that ran, that shouldn't have ran.
Ashley.
That was paid. Well,
yeah.
Well, Ashley could have won. She lost by a little bit. Lori Galloway, I believe, was paid handsomely to run to split the vote. But that man should not have won. People were with him. He was on the council before. He didn't win, and then he came back as mayor after we had Mayor Tate. Ah!
Yeah.
It hurts.
That's pretty much what everybody says. Of course, Mayor Tate was before I moved here, so I didn't get the pleasure of Mayor Tate. But I just could not believe that. I mean, Sadhu is like dead inside. I mean, really, you look at him and there's no reflection, no comeback. I mean, he's just got these dead eyes and this dead, I don't want to hear you, you're not my problem. And it just appalls me. It really does.
That's scary.
It is. Very. He's
a lot of our mayors turn into dark Sith lords.
I mean, he's like an android or something, and he doesn't, it just, I mean, even when you wave to him and talk to him or whatever, it's, it's just something's lacking. Of course, the soul. But,
greetings, constituent.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's like that, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I haven't met him myself, so.
Oh, no, I have. Yeah, he's a plastic individual, as plastic and artificial as they come. It's just appalling. But again, I am hopeful.
Okay.
Of people like yourself and people, like Dr. Moreno and Denise Barnes and just countless individuals across across Anaheim and around Orange County that are starting to get activated and be a part of this here, demand for transformation and change.
Exactly.
And so, that I think that's you've tilled the soil in so many ways, Lupe, and really, pave the way for us to, continue the work, because, it'll be you all now, but it'll be us in the future when we are, seniors, and me and Dylan are living together in a commune of a bunch of old, hip, neo hippies that we, that we are now, but this, this housing issue is personal to me. As I mentioned before, my parents live in a mobile home complex. My brother has autism, when they get older, I'm going to need to be, there for him, for them. And I would hate for them to be in the situation as you and others were at Rancho La Paz, where, they're having to fight for their ability to remain, after they worked for 25 plus years to own their damn home, all for them to get kicked out because they raised the value of the land under their home.
That's the one thing I'm glad you mentioned, because a lot of people don't realize that when you live in the mobile home park, you own the home and you rent the land, and you rent a piece of dirt for $1,000 a month, and that's still not enough for somebody like John Saunders.
Yeah.
So you saved, you bought your house, and then he ends up owning your house.
Yeah.
I mean, that's draconian.
Yeah, it says a lot about our values as a country. I mean, how else can we have Trump if this is a normal behavior?
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And,
thank you. And we'll definitely be plugging in, and getting people, to know about the signature gathering drive once you get that going, so that folks in Anaheim are understanding about the issues that you and your community are desperately, trying to fix and make right, not just for yourselves but for everybody. So yeah, I look forward to that. I look forward to the to the bill that is now in the Senate to be approved, to be able to have statewide relief for everyone. But again, that's only for 10 years. The fight continues, but the fight wouldn't have gone as far as it has without the people like yourself and other folks, in your community and other communities that have.
And Sharon Quicksilva, I have to add my hats off to her. Right. Definitely.
100%.
Yes.
So, yeah. Shout outs to Assemblywoman Sharon Quicksilva and other folks that are actually on the right side of history on this. Not Jordan Brandman.
Agreed.
Take that.
Or Harry Sidhu. Take that. Oh, dang.
And you know what, Lou Correa? Okay, no, sorry, that was out of line. Sorry, wrong rant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
no, thanks a lot. Thanks again.
Okay. Good night.
See you
again. Bye.
Thanks for coming. Bye.
Okay.
Woo!
Good times.
Good times, Dylan.
It's a good show.
Yeah. Lupe's still here with us, but
yeah,
that's good.
Figure it
get
out.
off here.
Okay. No, it's cool.
Let me get off here.
We'll let you. Okay. There we go. Okay.
I just feel uncomfortable, like speaking, like.
Yeah, this is kind of a new part of the show. You know what I mean?
This is the debrief.
Yeah, this is like the co-host debrief, because we never did this right because we were in person, and we wouldn't just ask our guests to leave the studio. I mean, there are exceptions to the rule, but yeah.
You're right. Yeah, if it weren't for this Zoom meetings, like we would just be like, that would be the end of the show, and that's it. But maybe we could do this, like when we have live people, or a live show with folks in it. It's like, all right, thank you, and then just go wait in the lobby.
Yeah, just get out. Get out. Well,
hang out with Edgar, our producer. Like he's gonna, he's cool. He's a
little different, right? Because now we can just say, okay, thanks for coming, and then our guests pretty much can just roll over and go to sleep at 10:35 in the evening. So
yeah,
a little different. But,
yeah, no, I like I mentioned, I was trying to get Lupe on for a cool minute.
Okay.
I was glad that it worked out.
I was going to say a quick minute, but go ahead.
A cool minute.
A cool minute.
Cool whip.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want a cool whip now.
Cool whip. Yeah, so I want to thank everybody that tuned in for the first time. If you tuned in for the first time, please like us and follow us, share. You can watch us on YouTube. Search for It's Happening Podcast.
Woo!
Can you drop the link in there, Dylan?
YouTube.
It's
I'm
happening.
getting links. It's happening. 0 subscribers. We're building up, guys. Come on.
I know, but now you can watch us on YouTube. You can search for us on Spotify. We haven't been really good about. Oh, there it is. It's happening.podbean. It's happening. Show.
It's happening. .podbean. .youtube. .apple. Fuck you. Okay, sorry. Whoa. Sorry.
Yeah.
This is what happens in the outro.
You can catch us on all of these platforms, most of which we are not very much active, but we will be.
When we get an intern. Yeah.
Send us a message, inquiries on unpaid internship, where you can work for Jose Gloria and Dylan Thompson for free.
Do you like unbelievably stressful situations? Long work hours? Negative pay? Like, you pay us, basically. That's how we're gonna run.
Gas to get here.
Yeah,
and you should be lucky to be working with legends like
legends. We have 5 views on YouTube. 5. Okay, sorry, I'm screaming. It's 11. I think my HOA is going to be pretty unhappy about this. Okay. 5.
Okay. All right.
I think. Hold on. I got something to say. Hold on.
I got something to say.
Wow.
I got to talk.
Oh, you got an IPA too? Yeah. What are you drinking?
Cheers.
Salud. Okay, let's close this out. This is rapidly degrading in quality.
Yeah. Once again, thank you so much, Lupe Ramirez, for joining us today. Like, it was insightful, enlightening, and
dude, she's awesome.
Really motivating. Yeah, and to learn about the work that you're doing and the work that other folks are doing in the community, and what's at stake here coming up in November. So I thank everybody that tuned in as well, and we're commenting and everything. But yeah, man,
she's a fighter.
Yeah. So
you see that she had like an 8-pronged campaign.
Yeah.
Do you see how intense? Yeah. So I mean, we could all learn a thing or two.
Yes. A two or thing. Yeah.
Yes,
so I want to thank audio video engineer Edgar Silva for being awesome audio video engineer. Yeah, doing all sorts of graphics and sound effects, which apparently we have, but I don't hear them, so I can assume
we do?
That they are good. Yeah, we do.
Can you play a weird one while I'm doing this, Edgar? What's the most like appropriate sound effect for that? I'm gonna watch later, so I don't know what it was that you did.
Right.
We're
sorry. Hemorrhaging viewers.
Getting crazy. Yeah.
Hemorrhaging viewers.
That's what I do here. I clean out the remaining audience.
So yeah, once again, thank you for tuning in. We will see you next Monday, where I don't know who's going to be on, but it's going to be somebody amazing, equally as tonight and previous nights. So yeah, make sure to tune in every Monday night, 9 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Yeah.
Talk about what's happening in your community, in your city, Orange County, nationwide, with a satirical twist. From Dylan Thompson and Jose Gloria and all of us on It's Happening family, we are signing off.
It's happening!
Te han cegado de realidad para no ver lo que es verdad. Te han engañado, no es libertad, lo que tú vives es vulgar. Ser un esclavo sin descansar mientras que el burgués se aprovecha de tus labores. Hay que luchar para vencer este sistema capital. Hay que levantar proletarios y la guerra popular. Hay que desarrollar nuestra conciencia para podernos gobernar. Hay que levantar los que han caído, víctimas de un sistema perdido. Démonos contra el imperialismo, alzar los puños para lograr el socialismo. mientras que el burgués se